Greetings, Darklings, from across the interweb. It is once again I, the Duchess, Precious Ken, here for the Sounds and Shadows podcast. I have a very exciting guest for today. I'm really geeked for this one, somebody that I'm a huge fan of. But before we get to that, I guess it's not an unboxing because I just bought this, but I wanted to show it off because, as many of you know, I am one of the Americans who's a big Premier League soccer fan. And when I went to the Fixation Festival a couple weeks ago, I got a Boot Blacks soccer scarf there from Barrett when I was there. You can get these on their webpage. This is so freaking dope, especially, like I said, if you're kind of a fan of both. So it's too warm for me to wear for the whole interview, but I wanted to show it off. Without further ado now, this is a band I got into about 4 or 5 years ago, kind of when I was going through my goth renaissance and stumbled upon them, and just one of those that my jaw dropped and I went, where has this been? This energy, this passion, this kind of, I don't know, like I immediately thought I was a young man who at 13 saw someone up on my MTV screen called the Eurythmics, and it changed me. Like, this was a big awakening for me. And I saw Annie Lennox and I was like, just the sheer power of her. That's that feeling I had the first time I saw a video from Black Nail Cabaret. So it is my great pleasure to introduce Amis. Thank you and welcome to the show.
Hi, thank you very much for having me. Hello, everybody.
So, wow. Like I said, this is one that just, I don't know, your music hit me like a ton of bricks when I was kind of finding new music again and doing this. Tell me a little bit for our viewers. I always like to start out with the question, there was a moment, whether you saw a show, you know, in your youth, or you heard an album, or you saw maybe a film or something, but something happened and triggered in you and said, this is me. This kind of music is who I am, and I'm going to do this now. Bring me up to speed a little bit about that thing in your history that made you fall in love with this.
First of all, thank you very much for the introduction. That was heartwarming. It's always so lovely to hear that someone, especially in the States, so far away, where we never been to, stumbles upon us, and that's just amazing. For me, actually, music started very early, and not necessarily with this scene, but anything that came through MTV and the first music videos I've seen at the end of the 80s and at the beginning of the 90s. And then I sort of felt that I would want to perform. That was, I think, the first craving or wish. And I was kind of practicing it in our living room. And my mom took me to dancing classes because I had plenty of energy. I was a handful. And then later on, I found, most importantly, dark electronic music. So I think that was a changing point when I knew that this is something that I would be able to do, I would want to do, because it's so close to my heart. Obviously, I knew Depeche Mode, I knew Eurythmics, which you mentioned very kindly. I knew synth pop from that era, but that didn't really add up until that point when I heard that typical dark electronic sound that, oh my God, I cannot believe that dark music can also be electronic. It doesn't necessarily have to be metal. So I'm coming from a small village, so we didn't get a lot of different genres, so to say. Sure. So there was mostly like metal music, which was the darkness that I was craving. And then I sort of figured that it can also be electronic, which is the closest to my heart. I was growing up, I was a techno and electronic kid. I was collecting electronic music videos, and I was obsessed. And that is something that I wanted to do, but also I wanted to do something dark. And when the two met in dark electronic music, then I figured that, okay, this is something that I would want to work on or work with.
Yeah. No, and so another thing that struck me, like I said, when I kind of stumbled onto your band and found it, was another element for me beyond, yeah, your dark electronic, your kind of gothy influences. But the big part of it is like your name, Black Nail Cabaret. There is a lot of kind of, I also grew up playing jazz. I was a horn player thing, and
Wow.
there are some distinct elements, especially kind of in the first couple albums of, yeah, like a jazzy, smoky cabaret club feel, and I think the
Right.
power of your vocals lends that, but I think that's another element that's added in, was kind of that, I don't know, not necessarily musical theater, but kind of, that cabaret room, an influence on you too, that you purposely tried to incorporate into your early music.
So we started the band with Sophie, Sophie Tar,
Mhm.
who is to this day one of my very best friends. And the way it started is that we started actually in a theater group, and we were doing horror movement performances. So I think the theatrical side of it came from there, and it kind of mixed into the way we performed and thought about songs and the way we started writing them. She plays the piano, and
Yeah.
she started to create some tunes, and I started to, well, I've been writing poems and lyrics, but I started to sing them on top of her tunes, and then songs started to form. And I think because of the theatrical background, it naturally um, becomes somewhat cabaret-ish, if that makes sense. And then we went with it, and I think even our first pictures show a bit cabaret-esque. Uh, and then obviously lots of other influences came in, and the band just changed. And then when Chris came into the picture, it completely changed. But to be honest with you, the name Black Nail Cabaret means something different to us. So blackmail was like the everyday tool that we used when we went to goth parties and all that. But the cabaret actually stands for that we didn't take that too seriously. So
I
we kind of
love that.
wanted to take the edge of it a bit so it doesn't sound too serious. So recently, actually, a friend of ours suggested that maybe we should drop the cabaret now, because we're quite serious nowadays. But I was like, I thought about it for a minute, but I was like, nah. I still love the theatrical side of it. I still love the metamorphosis on stage. So I think we're just gonna go with it.
I hope you don't drop it. That's my vote, at least. I think it lends well to me, a big part of what I appreciate about your music and the wide range of it. Even from album to album, you do have songs that, like I said, have more of kind of like a jazz club singing feel, and then you've got electronic club bangers right next to it, and no, so I think that's important, and I love that, you lend in that part of it. And it's good to hear too, you kind of saying that you almost did it to remind yourself not to get too caught up in kind of whatever the super serious goth darkness in the world,
Right.
and I
Yes.
just did an interview we released with Aurelio Voltaire, and kind of talking to him as an influence to me, because we do kind of a silly goth band. And so he was an inspiration there, and to hear you say that in the same way, that I think it's important in this scene, if you're going to wear frilly cuffs and like paint yourself up, don't take yourself too seriously doing it.
That's right.
It's supposed to be for fun. Look, the darkness that we sing about and in the world is very real and very serious, and but people are complex, and they aren't just one thing, and it's important to remember both sides of that in your music.
I always say that the songs come from the dark, but towards the light, always towards the light. I mean, this is the way I kind of write music. It has to have a solution in a way, a release, if I
I
may.
love you saying that. That's really cool, because I don't think of it so much in music. I do, but in my life, it's always tough when you hear someone who always wants to complain, but never say what would be better, or try and come up with a solution while kind of pointing out the problem. To me, it's important to kind of, yeah, work towards saying what it is that you would want or would be better if you're going to call out something that's wrong.
Yes, definitely. And music writing is therapy in a way. So it kind of is a solution for myself as well. So I kind of just giving away what I have learned myself, and I try to put that into words and into sounds and to share it with others. So it's like smart assing in a way, but not really.
Yes.
But yeah, but it's like it's truly like therapy. I can always the only time when I can write music is that when I've been through something really profound, and
Sure.
I've learned something, and I've got a message, and I have to write it out instantly. So yeah, definitely music is and especially lyric writing is therapy.
I want to get more into that a little bit later, but I want to turn do a sharp right for a minute because you talked earlier about the fact that Hungary and a small village where you came where maybe yeah you didn't have access to a lot of maybe traveling bands coming through to see. How did that shape you, do you think, as an artist, as you now have? You've toured out in Europe, played a lot of other places, gone a lot of other places, and been exposed to that. But how do you think those roots really affect the music and the soul that you put into the music that you make?
I think most importantly is that that sort of limitedness certainly helped, because even to this day, if I have too many things, like too many music, this is why when we spoke about the music I listened to recently
Yeah.
earlier, I said that sometimes my door is open, and then I'm very much getting hooked on new music, and
Receptive, you're
then
ready to absorb. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. I'm ready to sort of listen to new stuff. And then I sort of close down, and my gates are closed, and just listen to those over and over again, because I have a processing time, and limitedness sort of is my way of dealing with things. And I think it's coming from that era when I was still living with my parents and in the village, and I was going to school just to this small town nearby. And I didn't really have access to the subcultural parties in Budapest, and the subcultural pulsing and life that was going on in the capital. I didn't even know about it until I saw it was much later actually, until I saw a flyer, and I was like, oh my God, there are actually parties like this, and people, and like, oh my God, how mysterious, and all. So I really wanted to go, and obviously later I went and I hitchhiked to Budapest plenty of times, but that came later. And to this day, limitedness is the way I write songs. Even the instruments I'm using, I sort of tend to habitually limit myself. Um, and that really helps with creativity, I find. I'm
Yeah.
not sure how others work, but it really kind of, if you have limited opportunities, you will find a way um, with something else, with your own creativity, and that keeps me creative in a
Yeah,
way.
no, I love that, and I think that makes a lot of sense. We have a pretty famous saying here that's necessity is the mother of invention. And just that idea of, yeah, if you don't have some of these things spoon fed to you in your life, I think it in 2023 it's almost a detriment the amount of material that is constantly flooding us, that to maybe pick out some single beautiful thought and spin that into a piece of art can be hard because it's just so much all the time. And so yeah,
Yeah.
I like that idea that you have to go searching, and that adventure kind of leads to your themes and your music.
I'm actually really grateful for that period, because the things I was exposed to, the music and the music videos I was exposed to through MTV or Viva Television, which is a German music television, and especially Viva 2, which was the sort of undergroundish version of Viva Television, and there was lots of Björk or Smashing Pumpkins and things like that, and even bands I have never heard of, and I just absorbed the weirdness, the videos, and they were not necessarily goth or dark or anything,
Sure.
but all just that sort of weirdness just came at me, and I thought that, oh wow, so these are the things I can really connect with. So that's really it.
That's amazing. I just had to let a cat out of the room or we would have had a problem later.
Same. Oh my God. I mean, it's kind of distracting, to be honest with you, because he's but if I let him in, he's going to be even more distracting. But he's now outside, and I think Chris is trying to occupy him. But he's just like, there are three cats, and when I was getting ready to sort of set things up, they were kind of onto me. They wanted me to play with them, and they were like meowing at me and coming up to me. They didn't let me step into the bathroom, like nothing. And he's now outside, and he's banging at the door.
We're a very cat positive show here. I have four. And
Yeah.
so when I saw three of them were asleep here in the room with me, I'm like, yep, I know they're going to wait till the dead middle of the interview and then all get up at once and demand that I attend to them.
He's demanding to coming in. So it's like really, really distracting. I'm not sure if you can hear him, but I
No,
can
I
hear
can't on
him
yours.
meowing constantly.
That's funny. Now, have you ever featured the cat on an album? You know, with that
No,
beautiful voice, you know, that
no, not yet, but we
not
have plenty of samples, obviously, uh, recorded purring and eating and snoring and all that kinds of samples. But I actually wrote a song about them, about all three of them. Each of them got a verse, and it's a really fun song. And we're thinking that maybe we should one day we should finish it and maybe release it for charity or something, but that never
please,
happened.
please do. Okay, I'm going to talk to you after the show because I actually previously did a charity compilation with Sounds and Shadows for cats with a bunch of wonderful artists on it, blah, blah, blah. And I've been thinking about doing another one. So
Right.
I might be hitting you up for the cat song. I want to move on now because you have a new album that's releasing here on May 26th, Woodland Memoirs. And there's a video out for it already. I put it on today, Sounds and Shadows, the song of the day. This was a big shift. And one of the reasons I really kind of wanted to tie in, you know, where you came from is because I feel like in the snippets that I've heard and what I've read, that you wanted to kind of infuse some of that back and add new musicians and new instrumentation to it, which to me gives the whole thing a totally different flavor from what I've heard before. Tell me about why this album was different and special for you.
The way it came about is that I'm sure you know there were some bands in the scene who did this orchestral concerts,
Mm-hmm.
like orchestral versions of their songs. I think VMV Nation did one, and I think even Covenant did maybe a few songs, but maybe I don't remember well. But VMV Nation definitely did one, and that's when I thought that I would love to do something similar, but maybe not with an orchestra, but maybe we could try out a different setting and let's see what we can work with here, because we have plenty of friends who play different instruments, and this is how the idea came about. And then we just came together and started rehearsing. Actually, we started rehearsing back in 2018, well before COVID. But then it didn't really go anywhere, and there were a few other demos that we did which never made it to the final album that is releasing on May 26th. And then there was a break, a long, I think maybe year long or 2 year long break, and then we started working again, and we rethought the songs we were already working on, and then this is when the final sort of product, if I may say that, came about. And we definitely wanted to do a show. Firstly, I wanted to do it in a cave, to perform the songs in the cave, and then it sort of shifted into the pine forest. Don't ask me why, I have no idea, but it just drew me in, the pine forest. So we were looking for a pine forest, and we found one nearby, and this is where we moved out to record the concert. we wanted to actually do a full-on concert. So we wanted to do like the 11 songs, all live, all recorded there. But unfortunately, the audio recording didn't work there. So we have a beautiful footage. So we created one music video, and we didn't even record all the 11 songs. I think we just recorded like 5 out there. And we decided to do just one music video for Veronica. And obviously there are plenty of beautiful pictures.
Yeah.
So it's going to be a wonderful art book about the whole process. And I'm actually really glad that we get to share this with our friends, because they did put in a lot of work into this. And without them, it wouldn't be the same. Without their sort of thought processes and creativity, it wouldn't be the same. So I think it was a really safe space for me to play with so many musicians. I felt that I'm not as much in the front anymore. I'm more like part of something, like part of a strong group, and everybody is just equal. Not that we
I
are not
feel that a lot.
equal.
I mean, I would say like, yeah, in a lot of your music, you are obviously as kind of the front person, the focal point. And in your voice is what makes it distinct from a lot of other electronic music out there that
I
I'm
mean,
hearing or listening.
don't get me wrong. I mean, obviously we are equal. We are writing
Yes,
music,
yes,
and
yes.
Chris is like a very, if not the most important part of Black Neck Cabaret when it comes to how we sound. But on the stage, he takes a step back, and he's focusing on the gear and on the music and the technicals and everything. And then I just run back and forth, and basically I do the show. But with these guys, it was a lot different. It felt that we're all performing, we're all out there, if that makes sense.
No,
And
no,
that,
that's where I was going with this is to me, that's where I felt the shift was, is it's almost like in the mix itself, everything is more blended rather than kind of to the point or the focus of the vocals, which maybe some of the more electronic stuff was before. This felt like more of a blended wall of sound. And I know exactly what you mean in regards to, I have a Colin that's the exact same thing. Sure, when we're up on stage, I'm in the front and singing, but literally none of that could possibly happen because I can barely plug in my own microphone when it comes to knowing how things work or how it's doing. I need him very, very much to make it work. It never would otherwise.
yeah, he's very much providing a lot of safety feeling for me on stage. When ever since I've been performing with him, he just knows his stuff, obviously. And I do know mine. I do know my effects. I do know my mic,
Sure.
and do know my stuff. But and how to set up my monitor. But the way he's back there, and he's in charge for the backing track and everything that sounds and how they sound, and the levels and everything. That's just sort of it's a really safe feeling for me to know that I can
Always
trust
knowing
his
someone
ear.
has your six and is going to make sure that you're ready to go in at your best.
I do trust his ears. Yeah.
Yeah. Um, Another thing I think was interesting though is you talked about kind of where you recorded this and at least tried to outside to a point, using the
Yeah.
name Woodland Memoirs, and I think it does have a very, I don't know, almost like fairy tale, kind of mysterious, but also outdoor spiritual feel to the sound of it.
Yeah.
Um, what was kind of the impetus for that, and did you kind of want to do this more as a organic sound as opposed to an electronic one to try and capture that, I don't know, feeling of mystery and the outdoors?
The main idea was, especially for Chris, that he only wanted to play electronics that he can play there with his 2 hands. So there are no computers, no sequencers involved. That was the main idea. So it has to be sort of manual.
Yeah.
Obviously, the guitars are plugged in and things like that. So it's not unplugged, but we
Sure.
try to go for as manual and organic as possible. And that was the original idea. And then some songs were created with starting with a reference. Like I had an idea that I think we should go to this direction. I showed them what I think of, and they started to sort of like, I don't know, Tom, the guitar player, maybe started something riff, and I was like, oh, I like that, let's go with that. And this is how we sort of build it up. And other times, let's say them, Marty, the saxophonist, maybe had an idea, or Tom himself had an idea, like, oh, I could imagine this song like this. So the usual way we started is that I showed them the original. I was like, okay, this is the song, where should we go with it? And if I had something in mind, I showed them the reference. And if I didn't, then everybody was just coming up with ideas, and then we sort of went with it. And obviously Chris had ideas too, so certain songs that I think we should start here and go here, and this should be the tempo, and things like that. So yeah, it sort of evolved as a natural flow, and we ended up here.
Beautiful. So we're coming up to the end of part one of the interview here. We're going to take a quick break, but first, here at Sounds and Shadows, I always love to spin out to a song. So I think for the end of part one here, as we've been discussing it a lot, let's spin out to Veronica. I'll tell you what, everybody, I can't wait for you to hear this. It is just a banger. This song is one of those when I heard it, I have kind of my goth friends, or one part of my life, maybe my banker friends, my family, so on and so forth, a little bit separated when it comes to sharing my music taste. I feel like this is one of those songs that anybody I know in any aspect of my life would hear this and just be like, yeah, that slaps. That's just it has that universal appeal to it, that it kind of touches on so many styles, but at the end of the day, it's just a banging rock song. So I am excited to roll out to this. Do you have any final words to share, Amis, before we spin into the video?
No, but thank you again for the wonderful words and the wonderful introduction. So let's hear it.
All right, so let's hear Veronica, and then check back in with us for part two. Please like and subscribe. It helps us and the artists that we're trying to promote. And for everybody out there in interweb land, keep it dark, y'all.
Lonely girl running wild.